We live in a time now where people are producing their image at every moment. Regular people are selfieing themselves. Fashion models model a kind of being in the world, a kind of working, that they made look glamorous to the rest of us. And being fashionable, treating the street as a runway, became a much more widespread phenomenon for the general public. In 2015, I published the book, This Year's Model. I do a social history of modeling. So I look at modeling from its inception in the 1800s in Europe and track its development and all of the different ways that modeling is performed, from the runways, the catwalks, to this photo studio, to the street lifestyle photography that we see today. In the process of writing the book, I decided to go back into the archives and really try to understand changes in modeling work from a much earlier time. Looking at what it is models were asked to do over time, it really struck me how much the work changed once first television came on the scene and then the internet and social media. There was a move toward having to manage the self in more ways, in more places, at more times. There was a youthquake in the 1960s. The ideal of beauty in the transition to television became much more youthful. And Twiggy was the epitome of this youthfulness. And she was also all about throwing out the waist cinchers and the artifice of modeling at that time. And in that process, television, Twiggy, the youthquake, changes in the culture more generally, fashion became something that became more everyday. Regular people who never would have thought about trying to look fashionable, they just wanted to look nice, were doing their hair in Twiggy hairstyles. They were dieting to look like Twiggy because she was very slender. People don't usually think of Twiggy as somebody who epitomized, say, an Instaglammer now. She was one of the first accessible models, and she was part of the story of fashion becoming more accessible and more everyday for more people. In the course of talking to models about what it is they actually do, it became very clear that the kind of work that they do is very attuned to the kinds of technologies used to produce the images that is their product. The work of modeling became more all-encompassing. That's how I came up with this notion of glamour labor, to describe what it is models do, and also the lifestyle that models sell to the rest of us. Glamour labor is this notion of doing a kind of work that doesn't produce a product that's physical, but also the ways in which work had started to bleed into regular life. One of the things that's interesting about glamour labor spreading to the regular population is that the internet and social media, in a way, put those imaging tools into regular people's hands. We had a rise of bloggers and street style blogs also that democratized fashion on some level, where regular people were out there putting on fashionable clothes. They didn't have model bodies, but they were projecting a fashionable image, and they were getting recognition for that. And it was a really beautiful moment where it seemed like anything goes, fat, thin, white, black, tall, short, whatever. If you had style and you had a good camera, you could have a street style blog. A young model invited, like she was 16 or 17, invited me to her model apartment, which consisted of a 2-bedroom apartment, which had been converted to accommodate, I think, 6 or 8 young ladies with one bathroom with these beautiful girls. So that was an interesting, these women who do a lot of grooming, and the one bathroom, they all mentioned that was an issue. And I sat with them, and that was very fascinating to hear how they were talking about the differences between their sense of their own look and the kinds of looks that they were asked to put on to get jobs. The incredible pressure on whether or not to get a haircut, who goes to the gym, who doesn't, how much time people spend. Are people going out? That was another, because they considered going out part of their job. They also talked about things like when they had let their guard down. One model had said she had bangs and she pinned them back, and she went to the agency, and her agent came running across the room screaming at her, "Bangs, bangs!" And she was really shocked because she just popped by to get a paycheck or something. But that really brought home to her how intense the demand was for her to be the model thing, the model image, the professional, desirable image at all times. The Instagram get rich quick by taking photos in your living room is a really fascinating myth, which is very confusing because some people do get rich doing Instagram work. But for the one, it's just like fashion models. For every supermodel, there were hundreds of thousands of models working for free or for, oh, you gave me a dress because I walked in your show. Now there are tons and tons of Instagrammers who are putting their images out there, running their sites, running their feeds, And only a very few are getting the kinds of endorsements that can make a viable living. It's all on the shoulders of the person who's making the Instagram feed, herself or himself.
Right.
So there's a real pushing of responsibility for your own success onto the individual.